since you brought up the different age cohorts, from the baby boom to the younger people, most in this room are kind of the master's degree kind of mid-profession. How would you more finely layer the communication skills or professional whatever skills of, you know, like the typical undergraduate, early 20s, and then there's a kind of different behavior to people like in their 30s, and a different, certainly the baby boom generation, the older are different, and you're, I assume you're in personnel, right? Yeah, that's what you are in.
Yeah, we'll bristle at the phrase personnel versus human capital or whatever. But anyway, yeah.
How would you? It would seem to me, the question is, it seemed to me that there's a lot of different dynamics going on, and for a company to try to get them all to communicate or work together.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting research that I've read and done to a certain degree personally. So it's always dangerous to paint anybody with a broad brush, and so the generations, it's really the demographers that have drawn the lines in the sand on where those bands of age are. You do see that people tend to behave in relatively predictable ways based on their membership in a cohort, an age cohort. But that has to do with more of what's going on around them than necessarily their work style. So I think when we're seeing the same thing, it's easy for a baby boomer to say, well, these younger workers aren't as committed, and you know they're not willing to invest in the company, and it just doesn't play out. They're not exercising their passions in the same way as the baby boomers did. So there's the subject really, the topic here really isn't about generational differences, but there are some measurable trends, and so as an HR person, the core skill for any leader in managing a multi-generational team is to listen and to truly understand that what I'm hearing from them, they may not be meaning it in the same way as I heard it. So they got to do lots of checks for understanding, lots of making sure that I'm communicating clearly, that I'm not using age-based colloquialisms. All this stuff just adds to the challenge of leadership. And for the first time, we've got 4 generations in the workforce. So it's a challenge, but in terms of networking and in terms of the way that happens within an organization, I just think we need to talk about it. You know, there was a time when we all live by the rules that were set up by the baby boomers, but we're only a few years away from the tipping point where there's going to be more Gen X and below and younger in the workforce than older. And so that dynamic, we're going to have some lingering trends from what was set up by the veterans and the baby boomers, but we got to be ready for a whole wave of workers that are far more technologically literate, far more able to vote with their feet, or willing to vote with their feet and go to other organizations. Retention and engagement are the 2 areas that there's research being done now, and if somebody figures out how to help get more productivity from the time spent while you've got folks, they can be millionaires. Yeah.
I have a specific question for both you guys, and if you want to chime in too, Jeff. So, I'm in graduate school. I belong to several organizations I do volunteer work with, and other organizations that are related to my profession. I know who I would like as a mentor. This particular person is not involved with any of the volunteer groups or the organizations that I belong to. How can I get a hold of her? She's not someone that would be very easy to access. She's somewhat high profile. So how can I find a way to approach her besides being really sneaky and stuff?
I don't want to be. I'd ask some questions.
Or should I lower my bar?
I'd ask some question clarification. If this is a person who's not working within their profession,
yeah.
What is it about? Not networking within the associations and other things. What is it that's attractive about wanting to be a protege of this person?
They probably because they're kind of above already having to network at that point. They're extremely philanthropic and well-to-do, so they don't they network certainly, but she's definitely someone that I'm not going to run into in any of the organizations I belong to. That, you guys follow me?
Yeah, can you find anything out about this person on their LinkedIn profile or by doing internet research?
I've done a lot.
And can you find some common bond, some common organization that you might be able to cross paths in?
My
with?
doctor's in her building.
My point is you've got to find some personal connection other than, you could just try calling her up out of the blue. Has that occurred to you?
Well, I'm thinking about it, that's why I thought I'd
Yeah,
ask your opinion. I haven't actually, tried yet, but I've been thinking about it and doing my research for a while. That's one thing.
If I were you, I would search on the internet to try to find some common connection, maybe between you and somebody else. I would ask people who are higher up in the organizations that you volunteer with. Maybe people who are in management positions might know her. It's all about finding a personal connection that can make an introduction for you. And that would be the best route. But if that route ends up in a dead end, I would, pick up the phone and call the person's office, leave a message. You've got to develop a 30-second elevator type speech that conveys the purpose of your call. And it may be that you develop an elevator speech that says, I'm just interested in talking, getting a little career advice. And the person may be very receptive to that. You might be surprised at the response that you get.
I'd be very careful about suggesting that you're looking for a mentor.
Right. You've never met.
You've never met, and so it would really be more, I'm interested in buying a cup of coffee to have a better sense of, it's easy to see the career path that you've taken, and I just would love to get your insights as I'm, whatever works for you. But I wouldn't, you said set your sights low, I wouldn't set your sights low, I'd set your sights specifically on something that she can say yes to that doesn't feel to her like she's putting her toe in the quicksand.
Right, because I was thinking of ways I could be of service to her, but really she doesn't need my services. It's not the skills that I have.
Just to build off what Jeff just said, that's something he told me when he was my mentor, to just kind of just ask somebody if they want to go for coffee. And I'm the opposite of the extrovert. Okay? I am. So I'm not the kind of person that's usually going to pick up the phone and just, well, first of all, I don't use the phone either. Or ask somebody to go out for a cup of coffee. But I did follow his advice. There was somebody I wanted to kind of connect with from a career perspective that there was no common denominator. Other than I ran into this person at one event, but didn't really talk to them very long. But I had the card, gave him a call, and believe it or not, he actually called me back, and we did meet for coffee. Met a couple times, gave me some advice. Turns out, we stayed in touch here and there. It wasn't as productive as probably could have been, but it actually did work. Because this person was sort of intrigued enough that, wow, you actually reaching out in the blue, you don't even know me, and you want to meet for coffee. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes of my time. It actually worked, so it's worth trying. It was tough. It was hard for me to do it too. Any other questions? I think that's Jim.
Sorry. I'm kind of new to these social network tools, and I'm not quite sure how you use the LinkedIn strategically. I mean, is it just like an online business card, or? Because I don't really know how to use it myself.
It's an online Rolodex.
Okay.
It's having access to your colleagues' Rolodex files. And the important thing is once you make connections with somebody, to take it a step further and to, well, at least in my context, as I'm trying to expand my network, is to actually look for interesting people and get introductions on the basis of that. So that's one big element of LinkedIn. Another element of LinkedIn is it's the professional Facebook. It's where people can post articles, slide presentations, short blurbs about a conference they're attending. There's all sorts of little professional type of posts that you put on LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook.
Yeah, and two things there, because it originally started off exactly as Tom's saying, and it's definitely still that online Rolodex, but also they have groups now, and you can actually socialize online. They have a lot of functionality they're always adding to it. So it's become a great form. It is very much like Facebook. And also from a resume perspective, I mean, more and more I'm noticing, at least, that I'm getting calls from recruiters based upon them looking at me on LinkedIn.
It really, it's between the business card and the resume, that's not enough to give people a sense of who you are. LinkedIn really is a much more, much softer context to it. Now you're able to give a description of the roles that you've had. You're able to ask people to, someone who's unsolicited, people will give you a recommendation. It just really is interesting when you spend some time looking at LinkedIn and looking at the people that you know and their profiles, what you can learn about somebody. I can't imagine going on a sales call or going into a meeting without having looked at somebody's LinkedIn profile, not from a stalking standpoint, because that's not what's there. It doesn't tell me that they're married and have kids and all that. It just talks about what they're passionate about. You can really get a sense of what's important to them by you should look at LinkedIn. You're never going to discover that someone's a Bears fan or a Packers fan looking at LinkedIn. That's just not the domain that happens.
And for those of you who aren't on it, I think most of you are, it's free. I mean, use it. I mean, just go ahead and try it, start it up. It doesn't cost you.
So, yes, sir.
Just to follow further on that, the new feature that I've seen that they rolled out is kind of an influencer, someone that answers questions and is responding to people as they're interacting with people in the group settings, and it's saying, oh, this person, has a lot of free time, is really replying actively to this, but people are enjoying their answers. So it's not something, that's always done in the legal profession, because if you're putting yourself out there, you could be sued. But for those that aren't, dire questions, like how do I reach fundraisers or good grant writers to use?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on LinkedIn. Again, similar to Facebook, but in a professional perspective. People asking for assistance, people offering assistance. It's just a way to put yourself out into the universe, aside from standing on a street corner and shouting. It gives you a little bit of targeting, because you can target the particular industries and groups that you want to participate in and get to know people who you might not otherwise come in contact with.
Probably have time for one more question if we have any. Otherwise, any other final questions? Tom, Jeff, thank you very much. We have assessments here. Jeff, thanks for bringing those. They're terrific. If you liked it, Margaret, maybe we can send out some sort of survey to people afterwards. Make sure you sign in on the sheets. We'd love to keep these things going if you found them valuable. The next event is a month from now, so you'll be getting emails and such. And if you're in my class, I'll probably be bombarding you with propaganda too. So thank you very much for coming. Hopefully you found it interesting and enjoyable. Well, take care.
Pleasure.